Hello and welcome to the Wander Women's Collective podcast. I'm your host, Gracie Hins, and today we have Liz Thomas on the podcast. She is an incredible athlete. She is an incredible highliner. I had the pleasure of getting to watch her highline a couple weeks ago and was just very impressed. And so getting to sit down and actually chat with her and learn a little bit more about her life was super great. And so here is our conversation, and I hope you enjoy it.
I'm Liz Thomas. Right now, I'm in New York, but my base has been San Diego for a while, maybe like 6, 7 years on and off. I'm originally from Oklahoma, but I went to college in Colorado. So those are like my three states.
First start out, like it seems like you're a very on the go person, which I love. But what took you to Yosemite in the first place? Like did you even get there?
I guess long story is I'm a slackliner and a highliner, and I got into that when I went to college in Colorado. Like it was like freshman orientation, and I saw slackline and I was like, oh my God. And my parents had always seen me as like a kid, like a teenager, like, middle school, high school, whatever. I would walk on like the posts around my parents' like property. They had like 5 acres with horses, and I just like walk on these
Mm-hmm.
all the time. And it was always like, oh my God, I walked the whole thing 3 times without falling. Like it was like that's what I like to do. And then
Yeah.
my mom would tell like boys that I'm like talking to, like, oh my gosh, well, probably she called me Elizabeth, but like Elizabeth just like walked all these and she did that one 11 times. And I'd be like mortified. Like, don't tell them that I just walk on poles for fun. But and then I'd
Yeah.
like on chains and stuff. But then I went to college and my parents know I love to walk on things. And they were like, oh my gosh, go slackline. And then like I tried it, whatever. I've been like within the first week of school, I was like addicted. I was like hooked. And that's like
Yeah.
a story, but like but then I was slacklining, eventually highlining, and then I learned aerial silks because people were like, "Oh my God, have you ever heard of this? You would be great at it." Because I was like flexible and strong, and I was climbing all the time, and and then I actually the first time I went to San Diego was to do aerial silks, but then I was living in Durango, Colorado, and there was like nowhere to do silks, but I was
Mm-hmm.
into highlighting, and so and there was also nobody around who could rig a highline that lived there. And so there was like this whole process to like get to my first highline and then buy my own gear so that I could do it. But then on the first highline I ever rigged, I put my aerial silks on it and did my aerial silks off the highline. So
Oh my
that was like 2013 maybe.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but then I kept doing silks off of bridges or off of other highlines. Just like it wasn't like my main thing, but it was like something I did that's super fun that I liked. And I'd post pictures on the internet. Well, eventually more people started doing that stuff. And other people, like a tree of life are like inspiring each other to do silks off of highline and rock climb and all these bridges. And then eventually there's these girls that got stoked on it. And then those girls were like, oh, we want to like make a festival. And then I, as like the old person, which like I'm not that old, I'm like 32, but these
Yeah.
are like babies. I mean, compared to me, because I like have been in the game longer, but like they might be like, I don't know, 26 or something. But like they made a festival. They invited me to a festival in Tahoe so that I'd help rig and facilitate and just, help out. And so I went to that and then I was doing that and then I just took my time on my way home. But that's like kind of a long story of like I ended up in Yosemite because someone else was throwing a festival, but I helped inspire that festival to exist from stuff from a long time ago, which is kind of fun. But
Yeah.
I don't like being in charge of things. So I'm like super happy to just show up and like rig and like teach people how to get like on and off of the line
Yeah.
and not have to organize the whole thing. But I'm like super inspired by these girls. I love that they have their gathering. And it's really not a festival. It's called Skyflower. Wait, is that right? Skyflower? I think it's
Okay.
Skyflower. But they're great. They're
Wait,
awesome.
so is that like a multi-day event in Tahoe?
Yeah, it changes locations every year. And so I did it 2 years ago on the first year that they had it. And then last year I had to miss it because I was in Florida, but for
Okay.
a job, because I was working in Florida doing Sear Wheel at Legoland. And then this year I did Sear Wheel at Legoland in California. So then I got to go. And I think they pushed the dates back for the event. So then I got to go to this event. So I like drove from California basically to Tahoe and did that.
Mm-hmm.
It was like Sacramento, Tahoe area, but it changes all over, and they'll
Yeah.
probably explore all of California with the event. And it's like a nonprofit, donation based, and like there's like a cap of like 12 people. So it's like intimate, but it's so fun, and I love,
That sounds so cool. And
yeah.
it's just a bunch of like girls getting together and like practicing and getting better at highlining.
Actually, no. So it's a bunch of girls getting together doing aerial silks potentially
Okay.
for the first time outside. Uh,
Okay.
so yeah, so most of these girls, but not all, have like never touched a high line in their life. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and but they all are very strong at doing aerial silks specifically. And
Okay.
so, and then they've probably not done it outside, maybe on an aerial rig somewhere in a backyard, but like, so it's really catering to people to where it's like fresh and new and they haven't experienced it before, but they want to experience like playing on fabrics and doing circus stuff outside in gorgeous places. So, yeah,
That's so cool. I'm
yeah,
like, that seems just like the best of all worlds because I'm like, I
it
have
was,
not really touched any aerial silks, but I'm like, if I was going to, outside in a high place would be like the coolest way to do it.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
Well, it's definitely, it's amazing no matter what, if you have the strength to pull it off.
exactly.
But then it's also like extra amazing if you've like only been playing in gyms for like years and then you're like outside. But
Yeah.
a lot of these girls, it is a multi-day event, but a lot of them haven't been camping before. And so
Okay.
like a big step. But they like get to sleep in a tent or a car maybe for the first time and then, you know, it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you first got into slacklining, I'm so curious about this. So like you were saying you had always kind of had a bit of an interest of
Oh
like
my God.
walking on high things. The amount of strength that it takes to be able to do that and like also anything with the aerial silks, like had you had like an athletic background before that or like did you
Oh,
kind of see the slackline as like okay, like this is now my thing and like I want to be the best that I can be at it?
yeah, so I did like maybe a year of gymnastics when I was young, and and then I did cheerleading for maybe maybe 4 or 5 years. I think 5 years when I was like elementary school, middle school, but I didn't do high school pretty much because I just didn't feel like I fit in. Like I liked the movement and I liked flying, but
Mhm.
I didn't ever super really make friends because I was like a quiet, oddball. I was a Girl Scout and a Boy Scout. Now all genders can be Boy Scouts,
Right.
but well, maybe not all, but definitely men and women, and hopefully.
Yeah.
But back in the day, you couldn't be a Boy Scout if you were a girl until you were like 14 to 21. And so I was part of a venture crew. So I was a Girl Scout, co-ed Boy Scouts, and then I did like show choir, and then I did like Pilates in school. Um, I probably did other random things. I mean, I like tried soccer. I hated it. I hated team sports. I like tried basketball and my coach cheered so hard when they thought that I fouled and I didn't foul. They totally just called it and like the call said I fouled, but it was wrong. And my coach was stoked. They were like, finally. I was like,
Yeah.
hate to disappoint you, but I didn't do it. And then when I played soccer, I'd like run away from the ball, like. But I was athletic though. I would do things, like the show choir and I don't know, scouts and
All
and
the fun things, like anything that was piquing your interest.
yeah,
Yeah.
I did all over the place. And then I went to college, and I actually partially. chose the college that I chose because I really wanted to be a rock climber. I wanted to get into rock climbing. And I did some, but I'm from Oklahoma. There's not like a lot of climbing in Oklahoma. And so I went to Colorado so I could rock climb. So I just like got super into rock climbing, but I had like flexibility from cheerleading and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I always had upper body strength, and I would like do pull-ups in my backyard for fun, but like I wasn't using it for anything when I was younger. Well, I did work on ropes courses for a little while. That was like
Okay.
the way that I could get high in the air was ropes courses. So
Mm-hmm.
because Oklahoma's very flat. But I would do that. And then I went to college for rock climbing. And I did rock climb a lot. And then, like, the first semester, I took a rock climbing course in college. And then I also was just simultaneously slacklining more and more. And then eventually it felt like I needed to pick one. And so I picked slacklining. Because it was like, I just really liked slacklining, and I think climbing was getting too competitive and too many injuries, and it just
Mm-hmm.
felt less fun and more stressful. But also, I knew a ton of people with climbing gear, and I didn't know anyone with slacklining gear. So I just remember making the choice to start buying slacklining gear, so that was an option. Because like if I
Mm-hmm.
start rock climbing, like owning rock climbing gear, it's like great, everyone in town owns rock climbing gear, but nobody can slackline.
Yeah, and then once you started buying the gear, you're all in at that point.
Yeah, so it was like, well, this is what I do now. I slackline. I remember there was like a period of time where like I had some rock climbing roommates, and like one in particular would be like, no, she's not a climber, she's a slackliner. And I'd be like so offended. But then like a year or two later, I was like, yeah, he's right. Like maybe that wasn't true yet, but like I was transitioning. He saw it coming before I did, but he was also a little too proud.
You don't have to be one or the other. You can be all of the above.
All of it. But my name is Liz, and like it's a common name. And so people would like distinguish the different Liz's in town by being like ski Liz, bicycle Liz,
Mm-hmm.
or climbing Liz. Like normally I
Mm-hmm.
both. I was like slackline climbing Liz, but there was just like all these different Liz's, and that's just like how the people I knew would distinguish. Like, well, what sport does she do? Like,
That does make sense. Yeah, I know. Like I'm actually staying in an Airbnb with one of my best friends, Grace, and we
uh-huh.
went to high school together. And we also had there's another Grace that we're also friends with, and so it was just like, how do you differentiate the Graces? And so then I was like Gracie Lou for a while, and then she got the full Grace name, and then the other girl got the name Gracie, and so then it was like it was this funny like always feeling like I was like changing my name, and it's like no, like I'll still go by Grace, like family members call me Grace, but it's like yeah, it is a funny like this is how I introduce myself, especially like in college and like all of that too, because it's like you're meeting so many people, so like your name and like how you introduce yourself is like really who you're saying that you are.
It really is. I actually like when I showed up at college, I still introduced myself as Elizabeth all the time. And then there was like one person who was like Liz or Elizabeth, and I was like Liz, sure, Liz. I want somebody new. And then they caught me telling somebody else my name was
Hmm.
Elizabeth, and then they were like, which one is it? I was,
You're
Elizabeth.
like, I don't actually really care that much, but like sure, it'll be Liz.
Yeah, I was like, sure, it'll be Liz. And then and I think I was still, oh, my Facebook was
Mm.
Elizabeth, and then all these people couldn't find me. All these people were like, I can't find you on Facebook. I can't find you on Facebook. And then I committed and changed it to Liz. And I was like kind of sad about it. I was like, but my name's Elizabeth. But like they don't
Yeah.
understand nickname. And then I just committed and I was like, okay, I guess I'm Liz now. But it was silly. But
Yeah.
now it's Instagram, and so everyone just has their Instagram handles. And so if like I do acrobatics, and when you go to any acrobatic festival, there's like a million Liz's. And so you just say either their last name or their Instagram handle to like know what Liz you're talking about.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Which is
Mhm.
also weird, where it's like, I feel like I used to feel weird about being like, oh yeah, and this is my Instagram. But like now it's like it is so synonymous with like how like in a weird way it's like the same thing of like your name of like this is how I'm like introducing myself, right? Like it is that weird dichotomy of like it is a part of us.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that.
Oh, I struggle with it too. I'll like feel weird saying it often, but I'm also like, find me if you want to find me.
Okay, so how, when you started slacklining, do you feel like, was there like immediate community around that? Like, how much? Because like you're incredible. Holy cow! Like watching you up on the High Line and then like watching some of your videos, I'm like, holy cow, you're like insane, like just like complete level of mastery, which I'd also love to get into. But like when you first kind of started, like how much time were you spending practicing things?
Oh man. I was like, there was a permanent lineup in the kind of outdoor common area next to my dorm. So I probably was on the slack line at least my freshman year almost every single day.
Yeah.
Uh, and that was probably the most intense I ever, like most consecutive, like I guess I ever did it. So yeah, I was doing like a little bit all the time. And like I mean, for me, I'm super ADHD and like I was diagnosed super young and it was always really hard to focus. And honestly, I think several things, but I think having access to climbing and slacklining helped me be better in school because I would like
Yeah.
not be able to focus on my reading or whatever.
Yep.
And then I just go outside and I'd slackline and I come back and I'd be like, oh, I can do homework now. Like this is
Mhm.
magic.
Mhm.
I've like struggled my whole life. But yeah, I would slackline regularly, but also because I was trying to not do homework or I like couldn't focus. So then it was just like an escape all the time. But you mentioned community. I also really like slacklining because I've always been more shy, and it was nice that people would set them up around campus because then I could see one, I'd get excited because I just enjoy doing it. But then also I'd kind of like wait my turn, and then like I was getting good fast and I was like, or
Yeah.
faster than most everyone else around me. And I was like catching up to some of the people who had like already been doing it for a while. But then I would like get on the line and I'd like do my little thing and I'd like walk across. I don't know if I could do too many tricks when I was a freshman. I think I really started doing tricks like the next year, but I'd like do my thing and then everyone would be like, "Oh my God." And then I'd like have attention and like not have to say a single word, which I was like stoked because I like didn't want to talk to anyone, but I wanted friends. So like for me, it was a community. And then I just had friends because I did a sport and that was nice. And but yeah, for me, it helped me make friends by other people setting them up because I didn't own my own for a while, but other people
Yeah.
around campus, and then it was like, and then you just get to play, you get this like outdoor hangout.
I know,
Yeah.
and it's funny because like I feel like especially with the slightly ADHD brain, like whenever I'd have to like study for a test in school, I would
Mhm.
go to the climbing gym and it's just like you have your little upstairs workspace and you can like work on your computer or like, try and memorize some stuff on the treadmill and then like go do a few handstands and then like get back to work and it's like, oh, that totally fixes it. What did you get your degree in?
I originally went in with my major being adventure education, and then I switched it a bunch, but what I finished with was uh, mathematics as my major, and then adventure education as my minor.
How did you go from adventure to mathematics?
I think I didn't have a super solid plan and I still don't, and it's been forever, but I don't know. I loved the adventure, but I think honestly, I was just like getting in my head and like self-conscious about things that I was hearing from the outside world, like judging it and thinking people in that degree were stupid. And
Mm-hmm.
then also being in that degree and seeing how different people that if I felt like a minority that different people were like super against different kinds of education and stuff, which I don't know. I also understood because I'm like, we're probably all ADHD and we probably all struggled really hard in school. But I just had a hard time. I guess it felt a little dogmatic to me, and I'm not great at that.
Wait, do you
Um,
have an example of that, of like the education that you were kind of leaning towards versus what like other people were thinking?
they wanted to teach math, but they wanted to teach math outside. And I'm sure there's some cool fancy way to do that with like counting sticks and doing different things. And I'm sure there's a lot of ways to make math I mean, math is practical. It's like the language of the universe.
Hmm.
But sometimes you just need a PowerPoint. And I just remember people being like so against like whiteboards and PowerPoints. And I'm like, yeah, I agree. That's not like 100% the answer, but like it's also really useful. Like there's a reason it exists. But I honestly, I got really self-conscious about, yeah, hearing different people being like, oh, dumb people do adventure ed. Like that I was like, well, I'm gonna do something else. But I also probably would have loved to just have committed to that. But I don't know. But I think I guess for myself, I needed to just try something different and prove to myself
Hmm.
to do it. And so I changed my major a couple times, but like I got the math degree, and a lot of different people like didn't believe that I could. And so it felt good that I did. And then it's like, I feel like I just got it though to be like, look, I'm not dumb. And because also being a bubbly person that smiles and laughs a lot and a girl, it's just people are like, oh, you can't do this, don't even try. And I guess like all these different things, I was like, I want a degree that makes me look good. Um, but there's been a lot of occasions where people are like, oh, what degree did you get? And I'm like, mathematics. They're like, whoa. They're like, why'd you get it? I'm like, for that, for what just happened. And then it's like, man, I could have lied. I'm not like that though, but it's crazy. Like, it makes me understand why so many people do lie about their degrees, because it's like people just believe you immediately. I'm like, you don't walk around with your diploma. But yeah, but all that being said, when I was young, I did genuinely like math. It's like my favorite classes were PE and math. Like,
No, well, and it's interesting that you say that too, because it's like, do you feel like there was ever any like self-doubt with that too, of like, oh, like, can I finish this math degree?
yeah, no, I mean there were times where I was just like, why am I even here? I feel like I'm the dumbest kid in class. But like I managed. And then there were other classes where I'd be like, oh, I'm doing so good. Yeah, because in what I feel like I learned in the math classes, I'm sure a lot, but one thing was like it seemed like you had like the more algebra brains, and then you had like the geometry brains, and I felt like I leaned more on the geometry, three-dimensional, like visualizing things and stuff side, and like
Yeah.
less on this side. But it was great because like we could help each other. It was like this
Yeah.
tutored me on that homework and I'd tutor them on this homework, and that it was like it seemed pretty obvious that that was like a pretty clear like line in like how people think, and that was interesting.
Yeah, no, it's funny too, because like I got my degree in dietetics, and I do feel like a part of me was like the same reasoning that you were kind of saying, of like I just need to finish this degree, because
Yeah,
like it's one of those degrees where it's not a nutrition degree because it's a BS, not a BA. So I was like, okay, I can get a bachelor's of science, but like there's you're like your general chemistry and then your organic chemistry. And so it was really funny because it's like the exact same thing of like you have your more kind of like algebra people where it's just like plug it into an equation and like see what happens. And then there's like the people that absolutely thrive in like OChem and can like picture all these different like drawings and stuff. And so it was like totally the same thing, but like different.
yeah.
Yeah. So then after grad, did you do anything with the math, or like what has kind of been like career path for you?
Oh yeah, I've been all over the place, which is can be stressful and very fun.
Hmm.
I did the yoga soccer teacher training right after I graduated college because I wanted to be in a community that of people who did slackline or did yoga on a slackline, which I had never been around a community like that. I had started meeting trick liners, we would bounce all the time, and I started meeting like some more highliners, which was fun. But there's still like I was still pretty alone with yoga on a slackline, and so I did that, and then I got to work with them at Wanderlust, and that was fun. Oh, and then I like, did the thing that a lot of people do, and I like went back home to Oklahoma, and then I just decided to work at a bar, but I don't drink, and just like was a busser, and then people were like, "You should be a waitress," and I'd be like, "No, I'll just keep bussing. This is great," and so I did that for a little bit. Like, what else did I do? I think I taught yoga for a little bit. I did a lot of ropes course. I did like I was a ropes course facilitator in Oklahoma,
Mm-hmm.
and I facilitated zip line canopy tours in Oklahoma and Arkansas. And so that was like, oh, and I work at summer camps. I worked at Girl Scout summer camps, and all girl summer camps, leading rock climbing, caving, and different trips like that. I like helped build ropes courses, I don't know, 6 months or something. And that was really fun. And
Yeah.
that was another thing I really wanted to do, because like I always wanted to do something like that, but I know it can be really like physical labor demanding, and I'm a smaller human. I've been kind of nervous as like a girl and as a small girl to like have a job like that. Oh, at the beginning of that summer though, I worked and helped do stage crew work in Las Vegas. Um, for this like for like that giant festival EDC, and I got to do
Mm-hmm.
like 5 point harness work where I'm like climbing up scaffolding and stuff. And I got to do that. And that was like really cool and empowering because it was mostly men, a lot of men
Yeah.
covered probably felons, like definitely guys out of jail. And then there's like a couple of us girls, and I'm a tiny little girl, not covered in tattoos, and like all innocent and doesn't drink. And I just like, but that was really cool. So I got to do that construction work. And then I got to jump over and do the ropes course building construction work. And yeah, so we built zip lines. We like did it in Hawaii and California, and we built like ropes courses and we fixed things and stuff, and that was great. And then what? I don't know. And then I do more things. I've worked at an aerial gym in San Diego for years, teaching kids how to do aerial silks and handstands and cartwheels and stuff, and an aerial hammock. And I teach kids from like 4 to like 16. Um,
Okay.
yeah. And so that's super fun. I love that. I've done that on and off whenever I'm in town in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Aerial Revolution. It's amazing. I love it. Recently, I've been working at Legoland, but for a company called All Wheel Sports. And so they hire athletes and acrobats and stuff from around the country to do different amusement park jobs and stuff. And so I've done that a couple times. I've done other performing where I like perform highline, like I like highlining over crowds and
Oh my God. Wait, like where at? That sounds so cool. I think I'd also like if you like came out of nowhere and I was like sitting down somewhere, I'd be like, what's going on?
love highlighting over crowds. It's like one of my favorite things. I need to like find a way to do it more often because it's so
Mm-hmm.
fun. But so one of them is like there's this festival. I'm not sure if they're still doing it. I haven't done it since before COVID, but it's like it's in Ohio. It's in Dayton, Ohio, called like Subaru Outdoor Experience. And they have like they have kayakers that can do a lot of cool things like surf and waves and stuff. And then they have, I think, BMXers and probably some other people-ers. And then there's us, there's highliners and some trick liners. And so we rig a highline above like in the trees above this outdoor festival over the tents and the people, and it's like right next to a concert stage. And you just like walk and do tricks and like interact with the people below, and it's super fun.
That
But
is so cool. When you were doing the construction and like building the ropes courses and stuff, it's like it is totally like intimidating to be like a small female, like working. Like with my job, I'm operating heavy equipment all day. And so many times during the week, I'm just like, what am I doing here? Like, should I be here? Can I do it? And like, obviously the answers are yes. Like, you can do all of these things as a small female. Like, sometimes we just have to think through them a little bit more. But like, what was kind of like your experience with that?
Yeah, like what you said, I have to think through things a little bit more. It might take me a little longer. I have to struggle. Well, I don't have to struggle, but I will struggle at times with feeling like bad or guilty that I'm gonna take longer than like some
Mm.
can. But I also would see these big men not use technique and just use brute strength and then get hurt and injured. And so it's like, well, I mean, maybe I took like an extra 5 minutes, but like I'm gonna walk tomorrow, and
Mhm.
that would kind of make me feel better. But I mean, I would have to. I just really started practicing kind of holding my own because sometimes my boss would be like, "You need to go faster," and it's like I can't like
Yeah.
done right, and if I want to not be in pain and like maybe to actually physically do it, I need more time. It's like
Yeah.
that. I'm sorry. Um but I would watch and see a lot of people would maybe be a little upset at first that I would take a little longer. Sometimes, like it's like there's like a balance where they're like patient and then they get impatient, but then they'd be like really grateful and almost always say like sorry and thank you because it would be done right and well.
Yeah.
I'm not like I don't know. I'm not some big man that's about to get into a fight with them. Where like I've seen, like I don't have the aggression that I've seen some other people who might get it done faster. They might be sloppier and stuff. So, but definitely learning to hold my own has been a challenge. Um, but I also would be really surprised how much kind of it's not always like that, but how much respect would be given to me when I would not expect it. And that would shock me and make me feel like, oh, okay, I'm like allowed to be here. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And other times it's like, no, I need to know that I'm allowed to be here for myself, like, because nobody's gonna give it to me. It's like sometimes people give it to you, sometimes they don't. And
Totally.
that
And you
can,
need those little like reassuring moments to like keep you going. But then it's like, yeah, once you can kind of prove it over to yourself, it's like you're obviously meant to be there.
yeah.
But I do, yeah, it can take more to feel reassured in that for sure. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, also curious. So when we met, you were kind of talking about like your relationship with yoga. And like it sounded like you had a really interesting take on yoga, but it also sounds like you've been doing it for like a really long time. So I just kind of want to hear more about that.
Funny. Yeah, I think I was probably mentioning, I don't remember why, that I used to consider myself a recovering yoga hater. Is that what I was saying? Yeah.
I think it was something along those lines.
I think I wrote like an essay like almost 10 years ago that's like, I am a recovering yoga hater. And then I like put it on Instagram. Like I probably had like a Google Doc or something and put it on Instagram.
Yeah.
I remember I had several friends be like,
Yeah.
me too. And it was just so funny. But yeah, I mean, okay, so I've been doing yoga on a slackline forever. And I've been stretching forever because I like in places where you stretch. But people would come up to me when I would slackline and I do all these tricks on the slackline, like the splits or uh, a peacock pose where you like balance on your elbows and yeah. Um, I do all these poses and people would be like, "Oh my gosh, you must do yoga." And I would get so offended. I'd be like, "How dare you think that I do yoga?" I thought yoga was stupid. I thought it was I didn't even know what it was. I just had this like inherent hate of yoga for like probably no good reason. But I mean I did stretch. I had to like start telling myself, I'm like, Liz, even if you don't go to a yoga class, like you stretch and breathe and relax and that's basically yoga. And but that took me like years to get to that point. And then people would be like, "Oh, so you use slacklining to meditate, to like, zone in." And I'd be like, "No." Like I just hated anything that ever compared what I did to like yoga or meditation. And the very first time I went into a yoga class, I did not want to go. And my friends are like, "You're gonna love it, you're gonna love it." They're all rock climbers. And I'm like, just so judgy. And I somehow got like my fingernails are really thick, and we were like
Mm-hmm.
in probably a downward dog, and then you like pick your foot up and like go into a lunge. And I somehow, maybe with my thumbnail, like brought my foot past my nail, or maybe I came this way. I probably came this way. It's like I put my foot
No.
and I just sliced my foot open with my fingernail, and I was just like gushing blood out of my pinky toe, and I was like, fuck yoga, I hate yoga again. But like I clearly kind of manifested that. Like I was already so aggro in this yoga class. I was so stressed, and then now I'm just somehow cut myself.
The yoga was like, we hate you too.
I was like, get out of here. And I was definitely on like a school mat, like on a
Hmm.
mat, and then I was like so self-conscious that I was gonna get like kicked out, even though I didn't want to be there, but I like had to like clean all the blood that was going everywhere onto the yoga mat. That's not mine. I didn't own a yoga.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was part of my yoga journey. And it just I took a I took the yoga slacker teacher training, which I guess kind of helped me not hate yoga as much. And then I started doing acro yoga, and but like as far as I was concerned, I was like, aerial yoga's great, acro yoga's great, slackline yoga's great, regular yoga, it can go fuck itself. Like I just was like, why? Like I didn't like it. But then I took a yoga teacher training, and that was me trying to hate it less. And it worked. I hated it less. I wasn't like fully on board yet, but I was like still I don't know. I just had so much weird anger about it. But it like wasn't anything I grew up with. Like I'm from Oklahoma. Like that's not I mean, I had a teacher in high school, and she would be like, okay, we do Pilates, we don't do yoga because yoga is related to spirituality, and like I can't teach that in a public school system. And so I was like, oh, yoga, spirituality, bad.
No go. Yeah. That's funny though. Like the very not reverse way that a lot of people go, but yeah, like it is just funny because it's like in its purest sense, or not purest sense, but like most basic sense, you're like, nope, not doing it, but then like doing all of these other forms.
Everything.
Yeah.
I was learning, I was teaching myself mantras before I knew what a mantra was. I was looking at dristis before I knew what a dristi was. I was doing walking meditation before I knew that was a thing. Like
Yeah.
doing yoga all the time, basically. But I was just in denial. And yeah, people would always ask me, but I mean, in one way, like, yeah, maybe I did yoga, but I still wasn't attending classes. Like, I was just
Yeah.
messing in the park or in my room and like figuring it out for the purpose of putting it on a slack line. Like, because that's where I was engaged. That's where I could focus, was on a slack line,
Totally.
you
Yeah.
know, on a mat on the regular floor in a yoga room. But now I like yoga. Uh, I did learn about contortion, and then I still that helped me hate yoga more because like I think yoga and contortion can actually complement each other a lot, but back in the day, I feel like there was more animosity against yoga from contortion, and feeling like a lot of yoga practice is like unsafe compared to contortion, where contortion's like you go hard and it's very well thought out and like for very particular reasons. I think I used to get upset that like
Yeah.
every yoga class you go into, they're telling you how to do your alignment. But you just have to go to a specific class for that and kind of learn over time or take workshops. But I think that I wasn't used to the format of like someone just saying a name and then you do it. It's like,
Yeah. No, you're used to more of the like almost like building it up yourself or like yeah. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying there. That
mhm.
makes a lot of sense.
Now I think yoga's great. I
Yeah.
still go to classes all the time, but it's great. Breathing's great. Mantras great. Stretching's great. Meditation's great.
Yoga is good. Good to know. Yeah. Okay, another question for you. Um, did you had a big like hip injury? At
Oh yeah.
and like
Yeah.
yes, okay, what happened there? And then like I just feel like with big injuries, it's like it takes so much out of you to like heal from that. And like I just feel like that's always such a process and like you learn about yourself and like the people around you and I don't know. I yeah, would love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I was in my last year of college and I was rigging highlines with friends and we rigged a midline of the park and I was doing aerial silks and I was like, "Oh my gosh, before we pack the highline, I want to put my silks on it." But it's like just a midline at a park, maybe like 20 feet high. And so I put my silks on the line and then I was on the silks and then my friend got on the high line and it's really short, which actually can make it a lot harder. And then I'm this like weight, I'm like this suspended like 100-pound weight with the silks on the line. So it makes it harder to walk it. And so he's falling a lot, but it was totally okay because I was like attached. I was like, and I was just bouncing and giggling. And there's like a GoPro recording of that, of just me being like, wee, like upside down, giggling, bouncing because he keeps falling. Um, and then he was walking and he was doing really well. And we had the camera, and then we had a friend, or we had the GoPro filming, and then we had a friend with a snap camera. And I got cocky and I was like, I'm gonna change poses because he's doing great. He's not falling. I don't think he's gonna fall. But I didn't have like a really good plan of exactly where I was gonna go. And I think it didn't occur to me that it would be really bad if he fell. And so I came out of what I was doing. I like changed something about how I was wrapped. So I just wasn't super locked in anymore. And then I was in this like compromised position, totally trying to just get a great photo. And then he bailed off the line, line caught it. And then and he's like twice my size. And I got like slingshot to the ground from the aerial silks. And so I fell like at least 10, maybe 15 feet to the ground. And the way it happened, I was like, my right foot was tied in the silk below me, and my left foot was above me in a split. And then I fell, and in the air, I had done an ankle hang before, but I'd never done a single foot ankle hang. But in the first ankle hang I was taught, you like flex your foot as hard as you can. So I flexed my foot and I'm falling. And I think because I still had some contact with the silk, I don't know, I was able to turn and then roll. And so, but like I turned, I caught myself, I didn't go unconscious, but the first thing that hit was my hip on my left side. And then I rolled, I sprained my left wrist, I didn't hit my head. And then it turned out I shattered my pelvis. I like
Ah. Oh my gosh.
you know. And so my two pubic rami in the front, the little Jolly Ranchers, were both snapped. And then I had like my back left sacrum was pretty like messed up and so I had like 5 breaks is what they were calling it. And um yeah, and that was a whole thing. The camera actually fell over, so you don't get to see me hit the ground. but we have pictures of like just each state. And the camera, it had audio, and so you hear a scream, a crash, and then silence. And then you hear me say, someone call 911. And then nobody called 911, those fucking assholes.
Oh
And
my gosh.
and then I think that there's two guys. There's the guy on the line and the guy taking the photos, and they both didn't move. Like, and then I told one of them, I'm like, come here and like palpate me and tell me if like all my bones are in the right, like, do I look okay? I think I forgot,
Yeah.
is there blood? Is there a bone sticking out? Like, tell me what I look like. He's like, you look fine. You look normal. And I'm like, he's like, can you stand up? And I'm like, palpate me. Like, tell, like, does it feel fine? He's like, you feel fine. I'm like, do it again. He's like, and I'm like, okay. He's like, it's everything seems fine. He's like, can you stand up? Can you stand up? And I was like, I don't know. And then I rolled over into like all fours, and then I think I pushed into a downward dog, and then I went back to all fours, and then I was like, I can't stand up. And then I looked down, and I was wearing yoga pants, and my yoga pants were like to the left, and my first thought was like horror, because I just was convinced that my vagina was crooked and I was never going to be able to have sex again. And I was like, no. So I was so upset.
That's number one thought. That makes sense though. That's like the most, like, that's what the brain's gonna go to.
That's what matters the most. It turns out my left leg is just longer than my right. My pants are just crooked. Everything was fine. My vagina's fine. But I was like, I just mentally was like panicking that I was never gonna have sex again and my vagina was crooked. And then what? Oh, and then I think the other guy had come down and they're like, can you stand? And I was like, no. And so they picked me up and they put me on my feet. And then they're like, they just want me to be okay. And they're like, can you walk? And I was like, no. And then one of them carried me to the car, put me in the car, and then we drove to urgent care. And then they were after waiting for like a while, and I have like multiple chairs, and I'm like propping myself up because it was too painful to like sit. So I'm just like totally like sprawled, like feet, hands lifting the whole time, like I don't know, like just a lot. And then they were like, we can't help you, you have to go to the hospital. And then they sent me to the hospital. And then I was like, yeah, and that's how I was like passenger in the car. I was just like holding myself.
Yeah, because could you even sit? Like,
I couldn't sit at all. It was so painful.
just
And
like no pelvic pressure whatsoever. No walking. Oh my gosh.
I couldn't laugh for like 1 or 2 weeks. Like I couldn't squeeze my muscles to like
Yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't like convulse, like I just couldn't laugh. But yeah, we went to the hospital. They put me on like a gurney. It was horrible because I'm super bony and like broken. And so it was way better when I had like my friend carrying me or I was like supporting myself. But yeah, that's like, there's more. But I was on a walker for like 3 weeks, and then I was on crutches for 4 weeks, and then I was like, my bones were better. My bones were fine, but muscles take a long time.
When you were getting back from that, like how long was that, like 6 months of like healing and not being able to do what you normally do? Like,
For most people who have pelvic injuries, like they break their pelvis, it's like 6 months minimum normally. But no, I could start, like I was probably highlining in 3 months. So
okay.
yeah, probably wasn't comfortable, but like my bones were totally healed, and the doctor was like, have fun. I was like, really? They were like, yeah. I was like, can I have PT? They were like, you're too young. Like, you're so young, you don't need it. But that I think was a huge mistake. I wish I had just petitioned for PT because it ended up being really hard to do it by myself with no training. Like,
Why did they say no PT? Like, I just can't imagine a world in which you go through, I mean, like, even just like not moving your body for, like, that just seems crazy to me.
yeah, they were like, you're young, you're healthy, you're fit, you'll be fine. I was like, are you sure?
They're like, just look it up on YouTube, you'll be fine.
I mean, if even I don't know if you could have done that yet, and if you could have, I didn't know that you could. Like now I do
Yeah.
that, but and I
Yeah.
love it. But back then I didn't know, and so I just had to like figure it out, and it was hard. So I tell anyone and everyone go to PT like all the time. I'm like, oh, you have like a knee problem? Go to PT. I'm like, you have this? Go to PT. Because I think if I had done PT, I would have recovered a lot better and faster. Because I think I did have like lasting like impacts for, I mean, easily years afterwards, because I didn't have like the proper muscle care. Because that doctor didn't care about my muscles, she cared about my bones. And so my bones got better and they healed, but muscles need help too.
Totally. That's
Need-
the classic, like, one doctor approach, where it's like, okay, you have your bone doctor, and then you have your physical therapist, and like, yeah. I mean, like, I would love to say that that's not the way that it is anymore, but like, there are so many cases in which that's still the case.
Yeah, and that was like a while ago, and now I'm older and wiser, and hopefully doctors are better now, but I've still experienced doctors who should have recommended more stuff, but they didn't.
Mhm.
But it's okay because I'm older and wiser now, and I just like got it myself. Like it's like, well, I know that I need more than you, so I'm gonna go over there.
Yeah.
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 Did that like shift any sort of, I mean, awareness on safety? I feel like that is such a boring question of like, is
It's not worrying because I've been injured a lot, and there's been a couple times where I'm like, why the fuck haven't I learned yet? Like,
Mhm.
because like you could kind of chalk that up to like me getting cocky for a photo. It's like I could have just stayed in the same place and it would have been fine. Yeah, it would have been fine. But there was an instance where I was doing acrobatics with a girl who's like about my size. So she's small, but she's also not as strong as me in some ways. And she wanted to base me, and I was like, no. And then her friends were around and were like, oh no, yeah, do it. It's fine. We're here. It's all good. And I like said no probably multiple times. I was clearly hesitant. I voiced that I was scared. But then we had like these big, strong base spotters. And so then I did it. And then it was successful. And then it was fun. And then she wanted to do it outside for a photo. And I was like, yeah. And so I like went from like absolutely not to like, of course we'll do it outside for a photo. And then we did, but our big strong bases that talked me into it and helped a lot weren't there. But then I got a false security from the last time we did it. And then when we did this trick again, which I'm upside down on her hands, and it's called a reverse hand to hand. And the way that it fell, I think she just wasn't qualified to be trying this trick. I should have stuck with my original gut instincts and said no and like made sure there was more spotters and I shouldn't have caved for a photo outside. That's like the big problem. But she just totally buckled, gave out, basically ripped my arms away from me, and my head just went straight to the ground. Like I had absolutely no platform. She was gone. My head hit the ground and had a bloody nose. She's the one crying. And like everyone's like taking care of her. And like someone else came over and was like, Liz is the one that fell, right? And it's like, yeah. But she was the one who was like hysterical. And so sometimes I guess you just need multiple lessons to learn a lesson, but ever since then it's like ever since that one, which was like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I guess it was like, yeah, it was like 4.5 years ago. Um, I was really upset about that one because I've had a lot of different injuries, but it was like, damn, I feel like I've been training to not get injured in this like weird ego photo way, and I still managed to do it. I don't think I've been injured in a weird ego photo way in a while, knock on wood.
Yeah.
but but that's been like a lesson that I've had to learn. It's like the photos do not matter. Like so hard sometimes. I like just wanted to support this girl, but then yeah, and then I think I probably also got excited, you know.
No, and that's hard too. And it's like slippery slope of like, okay, I said yes to this, and then I said yes to this, and then
I
now
just
we're outside taking a picture, but it should be totally fine.
And it just like reminds you, like injuries and accidents suck, but it just reminds you to like constantly always be vigilant. It's like, especially when you're doing like really dangerous sports and activities all the time, like I have to remind myself doing really simple things to like pay attention. Because sometimes I think like when you get so used to like the danger bar being here, like you forget when you're here, there's still danger. It's like,
Hmm.
and I have to remind myself. Sometimes I talk to myself out loud. I'm like, Liz, be careful. Like, Liz, this is danger. Like, most people don't do this. Like,
Yeah. When you were doing all of you still do some of the festivals, but like when you were doing like a lot of the festivals, was that like how long were those festivals and like was it like you were away from home for a long period of time or was it kind of like okay, I'm gone for a week here and then I'm gone for another week here?
oh, sometimes I do like a summer trip. And so it might be like 2 months, maybe tops three. Um, and then sometimes more like a week, 2 weeks, weekend, uh, things like that. So it would vary. It would
Okay.
vary. Yeah, sometimes I'd be on the road for like 2 months or a month and just like kind of festival hop with like highlining and acro and just slacklining and stuff. So, or the yoga festivals too.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
ever feel like you got to like a point of like burnout from it? Of like, okay, I feel like I need to like take a break from this. Like this is what I spend so much of my life doing. Like I need to just like give myself a bit of time to step out.
I want to say yes and no. I feel like, and I guess I'm comparing myself to other people. I know that I haven't done it nearly as much as some people have done it.
Mm-hmm.
Just like on the road all the time, but I've never wanted to do that. And so I haven't, but I think like for what I've done, normally I don't get burned out because it's just like this is my chunk and that's it. And
Mm-hmm.
that makes me super happy. But there have been like, like at the end of a summer or something, it's just like, okay, I'm exhausted. Like I need to just be home for like a while to like re-center and ground and just like feel like a homebody instead of being like out and scattered and I don't know, socializing all the time. Like, so I both.
Yeah, being able to kind of keep it almost contained, I think can help with that too. Of like, okay, there's going to be an end to this. It's not forever. Do you have anything else you want to chat about?
To get, can I say something like dark and deep, I
Oh my
guess?
gosh, yes, please.
Okay, well, I've done all the slacklining and all the circus stuff, and I love all of it. But I did fall in love with a highliner back in like 2018. And then I got a domestic violence restraining order on him in 2019. And for me, I guess like going back to like the community, it's like, yeah, highlining is how, and rock climbing was really how I made friends. And then I don't know, I'm a little bit a part of a lot of communities with the acrobatics and different things. And that's always where I would find my friends, and I guess where I'd normally find relationships. And that was a hard lesson to learn, but I feel like one of the biggest takeaways that I like to tell people is like just because someone's a good athlete doesn't mean they're a good person. And that's what I had to learn because I just kept dating good athletes, and turns out a lot of them, not all of them, but some of them were not good people. And I went really public about mine, and then a bunch of other stories started coming out about other people's. And like, I love highlining and I love rock climbing and I love acro. And I know a lot of different people have a lot of bad things to say about all those groups, and specifically like the dating pool in those groups. But I like to think that there's just bad eggs everywhere. And you just need to be careful when it comes to like, don't assume someone's a good person just because they're a good athlete. And and gossip is useful because you can find out, you can find out some dirt on people. I know that there's also shitty people who just lie for fun, which that's dumb, but there's also like real communicating that can be done with like just like being like, what's up with that person? Like, are they a good person? Like, what have you noticed? I got a weird feeling about them, and like, oh, okay. And yeah, that's one thing that I've learned, because I had to learn it the hard way. And and we didn't talk about it too much, but like I've always kind of bounced back and forth. I've mostly always had a home base, and I've lived in a van for a little bit, and I've done different things. Normally I have my car with me, but like I'll have like a bedroom somewhere. But I've learned not everyone in a van is in a van by choice. And so, like, some people are in vans and cars because it's awesome and you get to travel. And some people are in vans and cars because their ex-wife kicked them out of the house. Like, and that's just like a very specific example, but there's like a lot of that. And so like I just want people to be aware that things can be great and fun and rainbows, but also like watch out. So that's my like deep little thing. And it's really important to me, which is I guess why I bring it up. Like you asked, do you have anything else to say? That was like the first thing I thought of. And it's like, I like speaking up about those things because it's hard and doesn't come up all the time. But
I do think you can get in these circles, right, where it's like it is this tight community and also just like the way that people are choosing to live lives. Like, yes, I think not all athletes are good people. I think that one, first of all, you don't have to date a good athlete. That's so hard because they can be so good at what they do. And when you have something that like you're so passionate about too, it's like, oh, that's so attractive. But yeah, oh my gosh, like could not be worded any better. And then also I think like with the you do kind of have to ask around and like I do feel like that can be taboo in like a way of like okay like I don't want to like be prying too much because it's like okay it's their privacy like somebody's story isn't going to be everybody's story but like that is so important and like I even think like in a weird yeah I just think like it's really good to know like how that person dates or like how that person's in relationships or like how they're just interacting with people in general too because it's like that is all gonna just go to show of like how they're gonna interact and treat you as well.
yes, all yes to all of that. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever heard of spiritual bypassing, but it's like
Mm.
some people do it in a Christian community where it's like they do whatever they want. They could be like a lying scumbag, but they're like, I'm Christian. It's
Oh
fine.
yeah.
Like you can do that in highlighting. Like people do that in yoga. Like
Yeah.
people like someone will walk around with like I used to be really triggered when I would see someone with mala beads and a Bali shirt with like Buddha pants. I would be like, I don't fucking trust you because and not everyone who dresses like that is going to be a piece of shit, but some are because some are it's like certain people will reach for like more obscure communities and communities that look are very welcoming and accepting and like loving of everybody. And if everybody, then it's like they can kind of get away with anything. And so it's good to watch out and not just assume because someone's wearing mala beads that they take like prayer seriously. Like, or like, you know, maybe they sit and they pray, but are they nice to their girlfriend? Like, are they nice to waiters and waitresses? Like, are they like a good person? So, yeah, it's like not, but like the one that I go back to, like I already said, is not all athletes are good people, since that's my dating pool in my life and friends, and those are my friends. And like, and I had to learn, oh, you're not really my friend. You're my friend because I'm good at this. Or, you know, like you want to be with around someone who's good at something. People should just watch out.
Was it that negative experience that kind of like what made you reconsider some of that? Or like not everyone is going to be trustworthy in a way, or like, okay, I really do need to look at people and like kind of ask more questions? Or do you feel like you had been doing that before meeting this person?
Oh, I definitely had not been doing that at all. Like I was just like trusting everyone blindly and didn't understand that not everyone has your best intentions at heart. And like they might only have theirs, and their intentions might all stem from insecurity that then like turns into anger to for like a control issues. And yeah, I just had no idea about any of that. Um, yeah, and it took like one really bad one to then start reading books, listening to podcasts, and like talking to people and being like, oh, I haven't just dated one of these guys. This is just the first one to hurt me physically. I was like, I've dated more and just didn't realize it. Like, that's why it was so. That's, I, nowadays though, like I was just highlighting recently and like that's where I met you. And I had great conversations with so many different men and women about safety in the community and about specific people. And like people were just having good conversations about how they felt or what they heard or, you know, like confirming beliefs. And it just felt like it was way less taboo. And it made me feel really good and safe in that group of people because it's like, oh, they're aware. They've, you
Yeah.
know, listening, they've been watching, they're like, and like, you know, I know it's not all, or I know not all abusers are men, and there's also some women, but the men tend to be more violent. And the sports, highlining specifically, and like a lot of sports are like male dominated. So like you have more men to women ratios, but these men were just like they were observant and they were listening to their girlfriends and they were listening to rumors and they were listening to me and they were taking me seriously and they were like and they were asking questions and they were like curious and I was like, oh yeah, I'll give you some list because I've had a lot of women tell me things and I know who has restraining orders on them. Like I probably don't know all of them, but I know a handful of like different athletes who have restraining orders on them. But and it was just really nice to be in a community where they were listening and they heard me and they cared and it felt really supportive. And more conversations like that have been happening ever since Me Too and like all sorts of stuff. But I also went public on the internet a long time ago when this all happened in 2019. And I had people reaching out to me from like Mexico, France, the US, Canada, being like, oh my God, I read what you wrote and I just like left my husband, or I just realized what I previously went through. Or this one guy was like, hey, you've never met me and you've never met this girl, but we followed you on Instagram for a while and we just saw what you came out with. And it finally got her to get the courage to leave her abusive boyfriend. And I knew she wouldn't tell you, so I'm telling you. And I just want you to know that you going public helped a lot of people. And I was just like, oh my God. And so, like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So like this girl from Mexico was like, I'm so glad you published about that, because now we're having serious conversations about things that have been happening in the Mexico Highline community. And so, yeah, talking's good.
That's so cool. And like that just once again is like power of story. And like even if you feel like, hey, I know that somebody else has experienced something like this, it's like being able to bring it up in your own community, right? Where like we all are going to know different people, and like whether you're in the Mexico Highline community, or like you're in the US Highline community, or like you're in the climbing community, or you're in a swimming or biking community or whatever, like it's all going to be different. And like yeah, I think everybody just being able to share their story in that way is going to be able to touch somebody else and make them feel seen and heard and known and loved, and then potentially inspire them to be able to do something and like make that change happen too. So that's super powerful. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. It means a lot that you stuck through to the very end, and I hope that you were able to take something away from today. I had such a joy getting to chat with Liz. And so, yeah, stay tuned for more podcast episodes. I love doing these. I love getting to talk with people and learn a little bit more about their story. And so, yeah, thank you again.